Hello and welcome to another Let's Play. Me, GamerWolfSix of Sileo, Tales of a New Dawn. Before we start, if you're interested in playing this game, you can get it for free on itch.io. But if you want to support the people that make this game and or get the news version earlier, then you can go to Patreon, where it's $5 a month, $54 a year. So, on the last Let's Play, we discussed with Russell, how he feels about Axel's, crush for him. Or love, I don't know. And he was like, well, my dude, I wouldn't want to get in their way of, like, the relationship, but if nothing's gonna happen, then, I don't know, maybe we could do stuff because he's, like, a super cool guy, but I also like being free and whatnot. You know? And also Logan's thing, because we told him that, we're back with Ty, but Ty lets us, be friends with him. Because Ty is a really chill dude. Hyena. So, we're gonna reset our face. And continue on with the month-long day. I hope the days will be shorter because, my god. That one day, wasn't it, was like 3 months when it came to videos, or like, what was it? 2, 4, 6, about at least 1, 2, 3, at least 6 hours. That was a lot of reading. Anyways, enough of me, now this game. You're not gonna believe me, but I counted 4 drinks. 4! 4? Surely you're just. There's no way a mere 4 cocktails could have been responsible for such a sorry state. Are you certain he was sober upon arrival? Well, 2 things. 1, he could be a natural lightweight. You know, genetically or something like that. Number 2, he's a small twink. Number 3, he's never drunken before. Number 4, maybe there's a little bit of extra alcohol in there? I don't know. Probably not, but still. I'd been with him for 2 hours before that. I'm positive. Drinking on an empty stomach, perhaps? Oh yeah, maybe. Nope. We had a jumbo bucket of popcorn between the 3 of us, and Axel had eaten about 2/3 of it all by himself. Oh dear, surely there must be some kind of explanation. He's not on any medication that you know of. Perhaps there was some sort of interaction? I'm not savvy on that sort of information, sadly. It's possible, though maybe he's just a record-shattering lightweight. Indeed, the truth of the matter may be something so simple, though in my 2 decades of drinking, I've never seen someone so easily bested by booze. Record-shattering indeed. Bet you got a few stories, about times you were that far gone, eh? Oh, personally, yes, though memory-wise, not so much. A few? Goodness, my dear, whatever you do you take me for? Some days I truly wonder how it is I survived my teens and 20s. By the hair of that much I can be certain. Thankfully these days I possess formidable fortitude, which, paired with the restraint, makes quite the potent cocktail. Ah, does that mean you won't be dancing on tables anytime soon? I cannot say I'm much of a dancer, though from what I've witnessed today, certainly not the worst either. I'm sure I could be convinced if you asked me nicely, though I would expect you to join me, my love. Both of us? We had better make sure that it's one hell of a sturdy table. Yeah, he is a big guy. Jesus Christ. I know that's not an entire scene, but it's like, that changed quickly. In stark contrast with our more leisurely interactions, the 2 of us had made record time on account of Ty's long strides and the brisk pace required for me to not fall behind. It had taken us barely any time at all to arrive at the boardwalk in the center of town. I'd expected our route would turn off and take us in town, but much to my surprise, Ty instead continued to lead me towards the same unknown destination. As would happen, not only had Ty neglected to provide this detail, but in turn I had also neglected to ask, with my curiosity finally getting the better of me, I inquired at long last. So, where exactly are we headed? This boardwalk leads north of town, and there's not a whole lot up that way. Adrian, would you truly have me ruin the surprise? Have patience. I am certain that you'll enjoy my chosen destination. I'm, not exactly the patient type. I am inclined to disagree. You have practiced much patience in the time since we met. What, 2 weeks ago? I seem to recall that it was only an hour ago that I had been running exceptionally behind schedule, and you so patiently waited for almost an hour with nearly a complaint. To be fair, there was no shortage of distractions and entertainment. I barely noticed the time passing me by. Then how about, oh look, an ice cream stand. How about I get one for you to help take your mind off it all? It would be my treat. Ty had not been mistaken. Ahead of us, situated on the beginning of the pier, which stretched out toward the center of the lake, sat a quaint ice cream stand, whose sign was decorated with words and characters that I did not recognize. A foreign language, perhaps? I shrugged. Ice cream was ice cream, right? And despite being in the midst of fall, our brisk pace under the careful gaze of the afternoon sun had woken up quite the substantial thirst. That's the thing that, sorry, my brain went tangent while I was reading that. It's gelato in English is different from ice cream, right? So then what happens if you're trying to speak Italian and you want gelato or ice cream? Because gelato means ice cream in Italian. Or I think latte. In one language, I think it's milk or something like that. Then it's what happens when you want a latte and want milk? Or apparently there's queso, which is different from cheese. If you go to Chipotle, what? If you go in some place in Spanish, how would you order a queso, and how do you order cheese? Cheese is queso. Anyways, you know what? Ice cream sounds great. Yes, please, Ty. Ah, such delightful enthusiasm. It will be a moment, my love. Ty should waste no time in rapidly turning tail and cheerfully bouncing his way towards the sand as it began leaning on the pier's outer rail, looking out across the shore as the gentle waters lapped lazily against the rocks below. I enjoyed that calm display for only the briefest moments before Ty's unexpectedly prompt return caused me something of a start. He stood before me, smiling warmly, as he held a freshly scooped ice cream in each of his hands. Here we are, my dear. This one's for you, passion fruit swirl. I realize I forgot to ask which flavor you prefer, so I pray that I have chosen well. If not, I'll happily fetch you another. I felt a gentle pang in my heart as I stared into Ty's eyes, which gazed back with a gentle look of concern. He was truly concerned that I would disapprove of this choice. I would have happily eaten it regardless of which flavor it might have been. An ache spurred within my heart, knowing how important my happiness was to him. It was such a silly and insignificant gesture, but even so, the sincerity of it meant the entire world to me. It's perfect, Ty. Thanks so much. Unable to resist, I leaned inward, planting a tender and loving kiss on Ty's soft cheek, an action which seemed to catch him by surprise. Coming to terms with his success, his look of surprise quickly faded into... I'm thrilled to hear that, my love. I remembered your affinity for passion fruit. You see, though I am fortunate, you've had no wish to try something different. Have we seen Ty blush before? That face looks different. Now then, shall we resume the journey? There's still a way for us to go. Sure thing. And so the two of us did exactly that, continuing from where he had left off at, only a marginally reduced pace, which helped avoid the tragic spill of our frozen desserts, and in direct opposition to our snacks, as the overflowing warmth I had now felt emanating from my chest. We hadn't even arrived yet, and Ty was already knocking it out of the park. My excitement for what lay in store grew by the second, as I failed to conceal the chipper smile, nor almost uncontrollable wagging of my tail, as we traveled side by side in high spirits. I know that I read a lot of visual novels and stuff like that, but like, I wonder why this game seems to take longer. I don't remember. I'd have to look how long Diego's route was. Maybe it's because in this route, the main character really likes to think things and think things again and say what they're feeling and stuff like that. You know? After a long delay, I finally took the eager first mouthful of my snack. Its sweetness fled my mouth. The passion fruit was perfect, just the right amount of tang, and the ice cream itself was velvety and delicious. Although, there was also an unusual flavor that accompanied the rest, a bizarre sweetness they could not identify. It continued to scour my brain, for the answer, as I meanwhile checked into my incredibly handsome companion. What flavor did you get? How was it? I chose raspberry colas, and it's quite delicious, though also a little strange. You taste it too? There's a weird sweetness. Oh, so it's not just mine? How very strange. I'm racking my brain to figure out what it is, but I'm turning up a blank. Do you have any ideas? I apologize. I cannot say I'm familiar with the taste myself, though it is hardly unpleasant, just a little unusual. I'm not in agreement with Ty. It seemed we shared our uncertainty, as I was floored that Ty, considering his experience with cuisine, still could not determine the source of the strange flavor. But he was right as well. It was still a tasty treat all the same. We continued walking, our destination seemingly on hold as we gulped down the frozen snacks. The silence encouraged me to reflect on what we had spoken about prior to our brief break, specifically Ty's uncertainty surrounding how he survived his young years. I knew his teenage years had been turbulent to say the least, but I knew little about his 20s, except that the Black Claws had formed during that period. Just what had Ty gone up to that was so dangerous? I figured that finding out would be a wonderful way to get to know him better. Hey Ty, I bet you have some crazy stories from your 20s, huh? My dear, crazy would be an understatement. Those years were a blur at times. Living like a rock star? A little, yes. We would stay up all night and party every day. Believe it or not, Glenn and I got along well during the early years of the band's existence, and with that came a great deal of strife. Little of it I have not come to regret in later years. As I'm sure you've guessed, I drank. A lot. It do be like that. Hotel rooms were trashed, televisions were thrown out windows, all the classic tropes, and not for any reason except thinking that it was what Rockstar was supposed to do. It cost a lot of money, and sadly, our relationship with several promoters at labels and venues. Geez, it's hard to believe you were that kind of person, seeing you all dignified and mature now. Yes, well, during my teenage years, as you know, things were difficult. I was difficult, but I got back on track towards the end, kicked my narcotics habit, and got myself cleaned up. It was only a few years later that Lucas and I would meet Glenn. Wait, a few years later? No, not on the phone. But wait, that doesn't make any sense. He's saying that he and Glenn got along well during their early years, and then like drank a lot and partied like a rock star, and then he kicked his narcotics habit and met Glenn. I'm just gonna put that there because it's not exactly a typo, but I'm so confused. Also, define Narcotics. Drug or substance that affects mood or behavior and is consumed for non-medical purposes, especially one sold illegally. So, opiates, sleeping pills, painkillers, bunch of words I don't really know, sedative, tranquilizer, downer. So, opiates? I know, I feel like narcotics can be a lot of things, such as opium or morphine. Huh. That is quite a thing there. At least I can say I've never done narcotics. We had been honing our skills as a two-piece for some time, but I was reluctant to sing in those days, and we still required a bass player as well. Glenn was good at both, and had the certain energy and drive that greatly appealed to me. Lucas was not a fan, however. We had been looking for some time, and I felt as though Glenn was too good to pass up. Lucas was concerned about his wilder behaviors, concerned that Glenn would be a negative influence that would undo all of the growth I had achieved since I went clean. Again, I don't know. In the end, I told him I was doing it, with or without him, and he reluctantly chose with, preferring to keep an eye out for me and steer me away from trouble. And considering how wild things still were, thank goodness he was there to avert the worst of it. As would happen, he had been 100% correct in his assumption. Glenn and I got on like a house on fire, and he would bring out the worst in me. And while I never returned to narcotics, that was the genesis of a decades-long drinking problem. Seriously? You had a drinking problem? And you run a bar? And he drinks. Indeed, a testament to how far I've come. Operating words of being, of course, had, as I rectified the problem almost a decade ago. If you have a drinking problem, can you, drink later and fix it? I mean, I don't know. As Americans, they don't really seem to look at shit when it comes to alcoholism. It's just, you can drink as much as you want, and then at some point it's like, you're an alcoholic, you cannot be fixed, really. You have to go to AA meetings and all that stuff. Never had to do any of that stuff, but at some point to myself, I'm like, yeah, I drink way too much, I need to cut back. Which is rough. So that's why I'm like, hey, don't drink. During the early years of our musical careers, Glenn and I were the sort to wake up in the afternoon and open the first bottle of the day, and would not stop until we were no longer conscious, one way or another. I've had, a small amount of days where, drink, wake up, continue to drink. You don't want to do that. I mean, it makes you feel better, but then it's also like, I feel better with alcohol. Maybe I should have some more. When we secured our first record deal, on top of some outrageous pittance in royalties, we received an upfront payment of $10,000. We spent it all on booze, every last cent. I mean, if you had high-class booze, that would make sense, I guess, but if you're just drinking regular stuff, it's like, oh, you'd have to be drinking a lot. How's your liver, by the way? We were young, foolish, and had read the fine print. I remember the excitement I felt during the first royalty check. It quickly turned to shock when I read the amount. I remember it to this day, $2.71, and it never got much bigger than that. Ouch. Wait, seriously? I thought you guys did relatively okay in terms of sales. That is just it. We did, and the label took it all. We signed an agreement. We had no legal recourse. I still get checks from them to this day, but with the advent of streaming, well, my last one was 3 cents. I do not even bother to cash them. Geez, that's rough. Also, do people do 3 cents? I know when it comes to YouTube videos, they only do it when you hit $100. If you don't have that amount, then it's like, well, next month, I guess. It's also a lesson learned. We went to war with that label. A war that we lost, and one that cast a shadow on our future. No label would touch us after that. It was more than half a decade of touring and promoting ourselves before we could receive another offer, and several years more before we would accept one. But I apologize. Those are hardly the crazy stories you're hoping for. Rest assured, those years were full of drunken regrets and things I wish I could exercise from my memories. How about you, my dear? You're only young, but I am certain you have sufficient time to make a few mistakes of your own. Not a whole lot, actually. But the reason for that is because my dormitory at university had zero alcohol policy. What on earth? But you're all of legal age, no? I mean, I guess this is Europe, so maybe you could drink in college? We were, but this particular building was privately owned and just leased by the university. Their policy on alcohol was one of the owner's conditions for the lease, and it's a policy the university would simply forget to mention until your orientation, long after your stay had been finalized. That is shameful. Welcome to university, I guess. They took my entire deposit when I left too, claimed the betting, which was included as a chattel, was no longer fit for purpose. I had been using it for 3 years, and it was marginally faded and not quite as soft as it had been new. In other words, normal wear and tear. That, plus a litany of other exhausting bullshit technicalities. And if you try to fight it, they do everything in their power to drag it out and waste your time, hoping you'll eventually give up. After 4 months, that was exactly what I did. And Diego didn't get his back either. I remember the bullshit that one of my universities did, but it was like police. It was like, hey, your parking tag is not correctly put on your thing, but clearly visible. Here's a fine. No warning, just fine. Fuck the police. Students are one of the most financially vulnerable populations. It is sickening that they're preyed upon like that, for only wanting a better future for themselves. Yep, you're preaching to the choir. But let's be honest, nothing's gonna change. There was a huge scandal during the second year when a politician who had promised to reform on that sort of thing got voted in. Once he was in power, he did nothing for the longest time. Eventually word got out that he received a sizable donation from our own university. Of course, they denied everything. They got away with it, and nothing proved for any of us. I'm just jaded by this point. There's injustice everywhere you look, and in hoping to change things, you are just making yourself a target. It's a heartbreak to be so numb to it all. Sorry, my brain was working. It's heartbreaking to be so numb to it all so young. That's a weird way of reading. But it was the same for me as well. That was why I was such a rebellious young man, and that was what the Black Claw's music was all about. It is what it is, I guess. But going back to your question, I have a few horrible stories. The liquor ban was never going to stop us, after all. In that way, I guess we were all a bit rebellious as well. I do hope you would be willing to share one of those tales with me. Alright, but only if you do the same. It's a deal, my dear. Okay, so I remember how I went out to the university with Tobias? Well, one day, he was goofing off and distracting me in class, like he always did. And he caught in the lecturer's eye. I got one hell of a grilling after class, but for some reason, Tobias didn't. I was at least a little bit salty about it all. There was a knock on the door, and in the afternoon, Diego answered it, and in comes Tobias with a backpack full of smuggled booze. It seemed too good to be true, especially being poor students who could hardly afford the stuff ourselves. Tobias felt guilty, and this was a way of apologizing to me, so the three of us got started, and things got a little hazy thereafter. I remember waking up the next day on the living room floor. Diego was seated, leaning against the wall, sound asleep, with a bottle still somehow in his hand. It's weird, I never blacked out when I was in my 20s, but when I hit my 30s, that's when it happened. Oop. Tobias, he was sleeping perched on the head of perched on the head of the couch. It was pretty incredible that he could sleep with such balance, especially as drunk as he had gotten. But the weirdest bit was, he was completely naked, except for his socks. His underwear was swinging from the ceiling fan above. Also, there's another thing. When I was younger, I would drink so much sometimes that, I'd be praying to the porcelain god and, like, I'd be laying in bed and my head spinning. But as an adulter, I don't have... I think I can only remember vomiting once as an adult. But not remembering it. But then also, like, I don't have those spinning things. But anxiety and depression after drinking, that's something that happens later. Oh my, I assume you and Diego were still clothed? Yeah, both fully dressed still. There's some other oddities too. There were a dozen pizzas on our kitchen counter. A dozen! We'd barely finished 3 of them. We also found out later that we'd been barred from that pizza restaurant, though we never got a specific reason why. Diego grumbled about it every subsequent time we ordered pizza, about how the other major company used shitty cheese or something. I don't know, and could never tell the difference personally. Anyway, it was obvious of what happened in our room. You could even smell the liquor in the hallway outside. We got called down to the management office, both Diego and me. They were furious at us. It looked like we were about to get evicted when Tobias barged in, taking full responsibility for the entire thing. He didn't live in the dormitory, so there wasn't a whole lot they could do about it, and Diego and I got off with a slap on the wrist. We always thought Tobias was kind of a wild card, but after that, we both kind of respected him a little. There was quite a bit more to him than meets the eye. And I can only assume nobody knows what happened that night? Yep, even now, none of us remember the thing. We know the bill cleared with those pizzas, so whatever got us banned must have happened when the delivery guy turned up. I shudder to think. We never found Tobias' shirt either. It had just vanished. I see. Well, thank you, my dear, for sharing it with me. Most certainly, a night to remember. Though nobody does. And believe me, I've had many nights just like it. Then, let's hear one of yours. I'm sure mine pale in comparison. Perhaps so, though I suggest you finish your ice cream first. Huh? My snag in hand had been reduced to little more than a slightly soggy cone, which I shoveled into my maw, depositing what remained of a few mouthfuls. Once finished, I responded to tie at last. Okay, done. I asked why I had to finish that first? Quite simply, they do not wish to ruin your appetite. The tale I've prepared for you is not for the faint of heart. Ooh, that sounds promising. Alright, let's hear it. The story takes place a few years after I kicked my alcohol habits, not long before we would enter the studio to record the 3rd album. It was the very same day Flynn had accompanied me to that special place where I had gone to work on my material. The same day, I ended things with him. Afterwards, I returned home alone. I had been Flynn there so that he would have to walk back on his own, and I had a drink to help with my mood, a drink that turned it into a state of intoxication I had not reached in many long years. In that state, I had contacted Lucas and asked that he come around. He did exactly that, suspicious of my misspellings in my message, and confirmed my state on arrival. I had not told him what had happened, and I was still so angry at Flynn. I wanted revenge, or something so foolish. In my state, I had little understanding of my limits, and, well, you recall the other aspect of our friendship with Lucas, yes? Uh-oh, indeed. I attempted to deep-throat a very confused Lucas right to the hilt that night. It was something I had never been able to do before, on account of his length, and I somehow believed that things go differently that time, that my gag reflex would not impede my progress. I can think of something that would happen, but, would Lucas allow that? I know you guys have done stuff before, but you're clearly inebriated. Naturally, I was wrong. Oh god, don't tell me. Now, you understand why I had you finish the ice cream. Yes, I puked all over him, and then I cried for hours. I felt as though I was not good enough, but it wasn't about my failure with Lucas. It was that my impact on my failed relationship with Flynn had, and how it left me feeling in the end. Ubu. It made me feel so terribly unwanted and unloved. Nothing I ever did for him earned much praise, and rarely any gratitude besides. He showed no sense of attraction, never engaged sexually, and rarely even accepted it when offered. He did nothing for me, nothing to make me feel like I mattered to him at all, only ever to himself. And Lucas? He wiped himself down with a towel, but did not shower until well after midnight, once I'd gotten it all out of my system. He instead put my needs first, and helped me understand that I had been dating a narcissist all along, and that none of how I felt was my fault. He even stayed the night and made sure I was doing okay. That's both super gross and super sweet at the same time. It's amazing how he always has your back. He's a good friend. He is, and I made it all up to him the other night. Even if I never quite accomplished that one specific goal, at least I can rest assured that from what he tells me, if I had done it, I would have been the first. God damn, you really gotta stop telling me shit like this, because now I'm kinda curious. I apologize. I just felt that all of my drunken mishaps, a few, make me look quite so pathetic. And even those are often the best kinds of boozy tales, though I may shudder with every unfortunate remembrance. Thanks for sharing that with me. Anyway, Ty, have you ever seen Flynn since? Just once. The fool came to my bar and must have not read the sign, considering it would surprise him to see me behind the counter. Thankfully, it was an uneventful exchange. I told him to leave, and he did so without protest. Though it made for an interesting conversation with Apollo, who was present at the time. I bet he thought he had a type. Such words were uttered, yes, but the topic also allowed me to make a comparison, one which is particularly biased towards our raven friend. I won a great deal of favor that day. Of that, I can assure you. But look, it would seem we're almost at our destination. Oh, thank you. I was about to cut it, but then I was like, So, that's gonna be the end of this Let's Play. The Let's Play where we walk, eat ice cream, and talk about drunken things. But I guess that's something I can pick on, you know? So, and of this Let's Play, so comment, guys, I like comments, don't you like, dislike, tips, tricks, otherwise. If you like my YouTube and would like to see it grow, then please subscribe and check out the videos to help it grow. And please remember animals help control the pet population. And if you want to play this game, it's available free on itch.io, but if you want to support the people that made this game and are getting the newest version earlier, you can go to Patreon, which is $5 a month, $54 a year. And until next time, let's say, me, GamerWolfSix, Sileo, Tales of a New Dawn. So thanks and see ya.